all, welcome to the channel DevOps Tech Stack. I hope you all are doing safe and sound. So today is day 2 of the 30 days of DevOps interview preparation with me. In this video, basically I will give you the overview on the important DevOps tools that you need to know for getting a job and answer to one of the most important interview questions. Before starting directly with the interview questions, I want to share with you all a quick overview on the idea behind all the DevOps tool. First, let's understand the term itself, that is the DevOps. Here, let me write it. DevOps. DevOps is basically the combination of two words. The first word is the development. The other one is the operations. Let me write operations. So development team is responsible for development and testing the application. Development and testing. Now operation team is responsible for deployment and maintenance of the application. All these terms I am talking with respect to the application level. So you have two terms, the development of the application, testing of the application, finally deployment of the application and maintaining the application once it is deployed in the market. So DevOps is the link between these two basically. Now let's understand which tools are required to carry out which particular task. For example, if you have developing an application using Python, let's say some web application you are developing using Python. So the very first thing is development of the application. Then testing team is responsible for testing that particular application. Then deployment means to deploy that particular application on the production level. You will just build some pipeline and it will deploy your application onto the production. Then you are only responsible for maintaining that particular application once it is deployed in the production. If some bug come out, if some issue you are getting onto the production system, then all those issues you are going to identify and work on that. So you have two teams, that is one is the development team and the operations teams. So the operation team basically here also you can think of like DevOps is mainly responsible for the development and maintenance of the application. But the better term is like DevOps is the link between these two, that is the development and the operation team, and they need to collaborate with both the teams. Now, we will understand each of the DevOps tools which are booming in the market or mostly used by most of the organization. We will get a quick overview on all those DevOps tools. The very first I can say over here, let me write. First, let me delete all these stuffs. Okay, now I have deleted. Now, first understand this term. You have one application, web application, for example. Web application means any application like you can say you have the sites like Myntra, Amazon. So all those are web application. So you are developing a web application or your developer team is developing the web application. Here you as a DevOps engineer no need to worry about it. But the developer team is developing this application in any programming language of their choice like Python. And then once the code is built, everything developer team have tested in their local environment, they will push the code onto the Git. I will explain you what it is Git, but first let me write over here. So once the application code is developed by the development team, they will push the working code on the Git or any version control system so that each of the team members in your project can access the code if they need. Okay. Now, we as a DevOps engineer, no need to develop the application. Means this part we are not taking care. But we need to know how the developer works, which repo on the Git they are using, what all services are configured in the development. So you need to know about the source version control system like Git or Bitbucket, or actually these are being used to manage the source code changes and enable the collaboration between the developers and your DevOps team. These are essential for the application development as they help maintaining a history of code changes and allow multiple developers to work on the same code base simultaneously. So the very first important thing in your DevOps tools is the version control system. I will write it over here. Version control system. This comes first. Number one tool in your DevOps list. Now the next step. Once the app is developed and it is pushed onto the some version control system, we need some server where your application can be deployed and accessible to the users. The development team has developed the code and they have tested in their local environment, but the application need to be accessed by some users. So how it can be accessed? It need to be deployed on some servers basically. So the server can be either on the on-prem or it can be on the cloud like AWS, GCP or Azure. So now here comes our second tool, that is Linux. You can't say it as a tool, but this is the operating system. The second most important thing is the Linux. In Linux, there are multiple servers available that it can be on the on-prem or it can be on the cloud. But now most of the servers are Linux-based servers. So you need to have the knowledge of Linux fundamentals like basic of Linux commands, understanding about the Linux file system, bit of networking like DNS configuration, IP configuration. Basically, you as a DevOps engineer need to know about the Linux command line tool mostly. Networking plays a key role in securing the software development and deployment process. For example, it enables the implementation of the firewalls and the security aspect and the VPN's configuration. Now, again, you don't need to deep dive into the Linux infrastructures. If in case system reboot is hanging or system at all is not responding, then there is a different team for that. Maybe you can say that is a responsibility of the IT team. But you as a DevOps engineer, you need to have a good hands-on on the command line tools or mostly on the Linux side because most of the applications are now being deployed onto the Linux servers. So the second technology you can say that comes in our DevOps list is the Linux. That is very important to know. And let's come to the next point, Docker. Docker. Why Docker is being used? Nowadays, Nowadays, most of the applications are being deployed onto the container level. We have different container technology available in the market like Docker or Containerd. So you need to know about how the virtualization works. Use a containerization tool like Docker to package your application and its dependencies into a lightweight or portable container. This allows you to easily deploy your application across different environments without any changes to the underlying code. So the third important tool in our DevOps list is the Docker because it enables that you don't need to worry about the application code. If the application code is working onto your local environment, then it will definitely work onto the production servers as well. You don't need to worry about the dependencies and all these things in detail. So I will try to explain all these DevOps tools in much detail when I will make a dedicated video on the Docker interview questions or Linux interview questions. So when I will make a dedicated video on this, then I will try to explain you in much more depth. Okay. So for now, you can just understand that it is just a containerization tool. If some code is working onto your local environment, then same code, if you build the image, it will definitely work on the production server. It can be either on the on-prem or it can either be on the cloud. Okay. So now I hope you understood the third tool as well. That is the Docker. Let's come to the fourth tool. Let me make over here. Fourth tool. What is this basically? Here comes Jenkins. What it is? Now at this stage, we have the developer who developed the code and also you have the server. Now we need to deploy our application continuously so that the latest changes user can access. There comes the CI/CD pipeline for that purpose, which we call as the Jenkins. Now, first you need to package the application code developed by the developer team using some package manager tools like Maven or NPM. Build the Docker image out of it and push that Docker image to the Docker Hub or private registry. Now, these all things will be done by a single pipeline. Okay. Now, you are going to write a single pipeline using the scripted or declarative pipeline that will deploy this application onto the containers. Or, okay. Now, using the CI tools like Jenkins or Travis CI to automatically build and test your code changes, this ensures that any issues are caught early in the development process and help you to maintain a consistent code quality. So I hope now you understand why Jenkins is there. Jenkins is basically once your application code is developed and it is pushed onto the Git, it will make sure that this particular pipeline, whatever you have written in the Jenkins, that will automatically be triggered and that code will be deployed onto your stage environment or onto the production environment. So you will maintain a separate pipeline for that particular use case, and whenever the change is there in the code, it will build the image, it will deploy that application onto the production level servers where you are deploying your application in the form of container. So this is the fourth tool that will come in my list. Now let me come to the next technology, you can say, that is cloud providers. Now, many companies are using virtual infrastructures. So, you need to learn cloud services related to managing your application, mostly infra related services. So, it is very easy to create the virtual machines from the UI, but the same thing can be done using the DevOps tools, which I'm going to discuss further. But you need to understand the various how the various cloud provider is provisioning the machines, how their network is configured, so all those configuration you need to understand. So the next in my list is the cloud providers. Now I will talk about the next tool, that is Kubernetes. What it is? Now you need to orchestrate your application so your application downtime is not there for users. There comes the concept of Kubernetes, which helps to manage the containers much effectively. Container orchestration tool like Kubernetes allow you to manage your application, scale your applications in the form of containers across the cluster of machines. This provides automatic load balancing, scaling, self-healing of your application. So the next DevOps tools in my list is the Kubernetes that you need to know. And in most of the project now we are deploying or orchestrating our application using the Kubernetes. So you need to know this particular tool as well. Let's talk about the next tool in my list. That is the monitoring tool. Let me write over here, monitoring tools. Okay, what it is? Now, once we have all the setup, we need some kind of monitoring tools to monitor our application. Like we have the configuration that once storage is more than 60%, fire the alert. So that last moment, there should not be any surprises or there should not be any problem for the users. There comes the monitoring tools like Prometheus for monitoring the application and Grafana to visualize the logs. So using the monitoring tools like Prometheus or Grafana to monitor the performance of your application and collect the metrics. This provides insights into how your application is performing and help you identify any issue that need to be addressed. So this is the seventh tool in my DevOps list. Let's talk about the next two tools. That is, let me write over here. I will write it together. That is Ansible. And the next is the Terraform. What are these? Now you have multiple servers like dev and production environment, and we need some kind of configuration on all the servers. There comes the infrastructures or configuration as a code tools like Terraform or the Ansible. You need to decide which tool you would like to prefer in your project. Like use a configuration management tool like Ansible or Chef to automate the deployment and configuration of your web application. This ensures that your application is deployed consistently across different environments such as the development, staging, and the production environment. Okay. Now, let me just go through one more scripting language. I will say it as a 9. Shell scripting or Python script, you can also say. Or these days, Golang is also there. Now, Also, you need to know one of the scripting language like OS specific, that is the shell script, so that you can write small automations for backup, mail notification, or cron job scheduling. These type of job you can write. So you need to definitely know the shell scripting. But if you are technically good, then you can write. Then you can also learn Python script or Golang. That is preferable. But for now, if you are the beginner, just focus on the shell scripting. That is more than enough. And even with 5 years of experience, this is fine to learn the shell scripting. That's it. Okay. So here comes all the DevOps tools that you need to know before starting your DevOps journey. What I have told, the very first is the web application development. Here, your development team is developing the code. Once the application code is developed, they have tested the application onto their local environment. They will push the code onto the version control system like Git. Okay. Now, once the code is developed, you want to test it on the servers so that your users can access it. So there comes the servers. Most of the servers are Linux based servers. So you need to have a good command on the Linux infrastructures. Okay. Now, once the application is developed, it will be deployed onto some Linux server, for example. But nowadays we are using Docker as a containerization tool. Why we are using it? So that if your application is developed or tested in your local environment, the same image or the same code can directly be deployed on some Linux servers where it is having a different configuration. For example, your local is Mac OS, but if you want to test your application code onto the Ubuntu server, so you need to create an image out of it so that the application can easily be deployed on some other environment or on some other servers. Now your application code is developed, you have deployed or you have created the image out of it, you want to deploy that application onto some server. There comes the Jenkins CI/CD pipeline. Here you will write the pipeline in form of a scripting language or in form of declarative language. You are going to write the CI/CD pipeline. Then you will configure all the configurations that you want. Whenever the code changes are there, I want to build the image out of it. I want to push that particular image which is with the latest code. I want to push it into some private or public registry. And once the image is pushed, it should be automatically deployed onto the Linux servers, for example, Ubuntu based system, or on the cloud providers, or on the on-prem servers. Okay. Now till this point we are clear. But nowadays, most of the servers are the virtual servers, and they are getting created onto some cloud providers like AWS, GCP, or Azure. So any one of the cloud provider knowledge is sufficient. So you need to know. First, you can decide like which cloud provider you need to learn, and then accordingly, most of the cloud providers are related to each other. Any one cloud provider language is just more than enough. Just focus on that part. Okay. So I hope till this point you are clear. Now we have the concept of the Kubernetes, which allow to orchestrate the application so that application will not have any downtime for the user. It will automatically create more replicas of your application and will give you a good latency rate for the users. Okay. Now the next in my list is the monitoring tools, because once the application is deployed onto the servers and your users are using it, you don't want your users to be in some trouble. So you are going to configure the alerts. You are going to see the usage of your applications using the monitoring tools like Prometheus. You will configure the alerts, and for visualization you are going to use the tools like Grafana. Okay. Now in my next list we have the Ansible and Terraform. Ansible is mostly used for the configuration level changes. Terraform is basically used to create the infrastructures that I will discuss in much more detail when I'm going to make a dedicated video on the interview questions related to Ansible or Terraform. Okay. But as of now, you can think that this with the same configuration, you need to deploy the application on both the stage and production server. There should not be any mismatch. So for that particular use case, you are going to use the Ansible and Terraform. And at last, you need to know some scripting, like you can go with the shell or Python scripting so that you can automate day-to-day tasks. So basically, by leveraging these DevOps tools, organization can automate many aspects of the application deployment process. It will reduce the error and it enable the faster and more reliable software delivery. So in this video, you got the answer of very important interview question, that is, which all tools you have used to implement DevOps in your project. And also in my upcoming videos, we will discuss technical and scenario based question on each of the tools separately, which I have discussed one by one. Okay. So I hope you are clear with the process which you need to follow before preparing for the DevOps interview and all the DevOps tools which make easy to follow this DevOps methodology. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching this video. I hope you guys are as excited as I am for making the third video in this playlist. Thank you.